Okay, YouTube, welcome back to another video. And in this one, it's a little bit different. Okay, it's not just value for fitness. There is a lot of fitness in this, which is the main stem, which I'll obviously go through as I go into this video in more depth. But it's also just to talk you through sort of how I am where I am, my thought process, purely mainly due to fitness. Okay, it's all going to link back because to me, fitness is one of the key pillars that it's probably the number one pillar I have, but it's also that many people I've worked with and who I speak with who are doing quite well or maybe living a life that others deem successful. I think fitness has a huge component to that, and there's a huge element. So I'm going to go through this video in some detail and talk through a little bit where I am to this day at the age of 25. I feel like I'm getting old, and also hopefully give some value to maybe those who are looking at changing what they're doing, want to feel a bit happier in themselves, fitness, work, etc., etc. So, starting off, I think even at school, I would often question teachers, not being rude or cheeky, maybe a little bit cheeky, but mainly it was just on their thoughts and reasons for having to do certain things. It's always why do we have to do this? Why? I'm not sure about that. And I think I've always been someone that if everyone has to go left, I sort of want to go right. I'm not on about like political or anything like that, but if someone says something, I want to do the opposite a little bit. Now that definitely comes from growing up, especially around my stepdad, who is very much that way inclined. He doesn't like being told what to do, I would say. So he is very much of the mindset of I will do what I want to do, not in a negative way, just more of a if that's something I want to do, I'm going to go and do it. Simple as that. So I think I know that is where that stems from, because other family members are very much, would do as they're told, follow the path, whereas I'm a little bit different to that. And I definitely put that down to my environment growing up from a young age. So I guess you could probably say like not taking the usual pathway stemmed from school. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was leaving school at 16. No idea. I couldn't have told you. I think even if I had a careers meeting, I think it might have been something sport related or business related, just because they were the two passions I had. But I really didn't want to go sixth form because I didn't want to do further education. I didn't want to go to university. So I ended up going to a football college, as you do, just purely down to the fact of I enjoyed football. I didn't know what else to do. I had a few mates that would go into the same place, so it just seemed natural. And I knew that the education element of things wasn't going to be as prominent as it would have been if I stayed at sixth form and school. So that's what I did after school at the age of 16. But at the age of 17, I left as I started to dislike football because I was doing it every single day, and also realised I wasn't that good. That was the main thing. But that time period is when I started to find the gym, enjoying of training, which probably put me on the path that I am on now. Well, it definitely did. So into the workplace I went. So I left there after a year, but I still had a year left to do my college work. So I went to a college and then worked part-time. So my first ever job was selling printers to businesses. So my job I was spent going around business parks trying to flog printers. Konica Minolta, that was the brand of printer and photocopier. And I did this for a year. Now, I used to dread it. I used to dread going to work doing this. I only did it a couple of days a week, but I used to dread it because ultimately I just didn't like it. But I guess that's probably the start of being put in uncomfortable positions and having to adapt and get used to being in that position. So most of my days were around business parks in an oversized shirt, baggy trousers, trying to look smart, and shit flickers, which were my old school shoes. Well, no, they were old wedding shoes because they were brown. But it was a great experience because probably before this, I was a little bit more introverted. So kept myself to myself, wasn't really the most talkative person and, would sort of shy away from things. Whereas this made me have to go out and talk to people, face rejection, be told stuff, take on information, how to act around certain people, male, female, if it's the receptionist or the managing director, how to act. So over a year, I learned a lot. paid for my first lads holiday to Zante, which was fantastic, but it was far more the personal skills I developed, which was more important than the actual money. But during this time, again, I was loving the gym, really taking it seriously. I was like 18, so I was getting in shape for lads holidays, like I said. And, this was the time where I thought, okay, I don't want to be selling printers for the rest of my life. I want to become a personal trainer. So after I came back from Zante in 2018, I went to David Lloyd, and managed to get a job there as a lifeguard. At the weekend, I'd then work in the creche, sports coaching, and looking after the kids in the week. And then eventually, after a year of doing that, so in 2019, I moved onto the gym floor wearing the orange t-shirt, which said, I can't remember what it said, fitness coach in the back. And that was my first role into sort of the gym floor. Now, that was 2019, summertime, June, July, August maybe. And then obviously in the following March or February, we went into COVID. So for me, obviously COVID as a whole was pretty awful because obviously lots of people died. But from a selfish perspective, this was a time where I was really able to leverage the fact I had a decent sized garden. I'd bought some equipment before lockdown because knowing that, okay, if we're going to a lockdown, people are going to buy lots of gym equipment, they might be out of stock. So I was able to buy a fair few bits to start with. And I'd also always toyed with sort of starting an Instagram fitness page. I posted a little bit here and there, like my physique training on my personal page, but I thought, right, let me actually start a designated page based around my own training. And obviously lockdown gave me the time, it gave me something to do. I was posting every single day, giving tips, documenting my journey, and filming workouts. And ultimately this allowed me to build not a massive audience, but it just had people mainly in my circle or in my area know, okay, this fella's training, he sort of knows what he's talking about, and he's got a bit of equipment. So from that, I then started personal training some friends in my garden, and then started training family friends and people in the park, charge £15 for an hour. I was just doing it, to keep myself busy, but also just because I was enjoying it. So for me, it made the days in lockdown, especially as things got a bit more lenient, go a lot quicker. So this stemmed, basically the gyms then reopened. I went back to working at David Lloyd and then carried on doing the PT on the side. And ultimately by the end of 2020, at the end of the second lockdown, I got to a point where I was pretty full with the one-to-one PT and I was going to people's houses or parks that I was able to hand in my notice at David Lloyd. And in 2021, I was able to purchase my JC training, Bring Your Fitness to Your Doorstep van. Fantastic time in Citroen Berlingo, all my equipment in the back, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable time, I would say. And, along the way of this, I'll move myself so I can see, I was very now interested in, yes, obviously I'm still a personal trainer, but I wanted to understand more like the business side. I think I've always had an interest in business, growing up in a household of a business owner, and entrepreneurship was something I'd always looked into. I remember even when I was younger, I used to do spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets of businesses and revenue and profit and how much they'd have to sell. And I had a bit of an interest into it. So obviously now I'm in a position where, perfect, I'm a personal trainer. I also need to learn the business side. So that's what I did up until 2022, which is obviously 14 months roughly, where as much as I was enjoying being my own boss, I was obviously doing the PT and living life on my own terms. I just felt as if, again, I couldn't see myself doing it long term. This is no disrespect to the people that I was training, but they were just not the people I wanted to train because I was going to their house with a couple of dumbbells, a kettlebell, and an ab roll out. It wasn't sort of the environment I wanted to be in order to further progress in my career. So as you do, I took a risk. Someone I followed a lot online with fitness business, etc., had put a job advert out to work at his gym in Nottingham. And long story short, in July 2022, I moved to Nottingham on my own, moved to a HMO, which is a house of multiple occupancy, and worked out of a top class facility. The main reason for wanting to go there was, like I say, the environment. Again, being the small fish in a big pond, which I definitely felt, and also just to learn of people who are miles ahead, because you can read books, you can join mentorships and courses, which are all great, but actually being in an environment every single day is just going to propel you forward so much more. Okay, so I had 7 months at M10 in Nottingham, learned a hell of a lot from how to conduct myself as a personal trainer, how to learning about the human body, how to, develop better banter. It's still pretty poor at the moment, but I did learn a lot. And obviously I was living on my own. Luckily for the last few months, a friend of mine from Coventry, we lived together, which was great. And ultimately had a really good time. But I learned that there was a few things that didn't quite align with me. I wasn't too happy about. And ultimately I left after 7 months. It was a great 7 months, but it just wasn't meant to be. Unfortunately, that gym then closed down 6-7 months later. So I guess it's kind of a good thing I left. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a job or a gym to work at. So I left in 2023, February, and I actually planned and applied to become a fireman. Purely down to the fact of I thought it was like a 4-day on, 4-day off. 4 days working as a fireman, helping people, something different every day. And then 4 days off, I could do maybe 2 days of personal training, then 2 days off. So I thought, okay, sounds pretty good. But I actually failed the exam, the theory exam. I didn't realise you had to actually revise for it. And I remember taking it on the toilet thinking, shit, quite literally, I'm not going to be able to do this. And lo and behold, I failed. So I guess that was all meant to be. And you couldn't reapply for another year. So I thought, what should I do? So I started working for the family business, which was what I was going to do anyway. And that was a case of 8:30 till 4:30. Evenings I'd then go out knocking doors, trying to sell for the family business. And again, learned a lot. I was training first thing in the morning, had a really good routine. I would do the day sort of 8:30 till 4:30. I was also prepping for a photo shoot during this time. And I still documented this. I had a couple of online clients, like 4, maybe 5. Looking back, what I should have done was my clients in M10, I should have potentially have planted the seed to come online, but I didn't. Again, something to learn from. Documented the photo shoot. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a case of you do a photo shoot and you get 100 clients, but I just wanted to use that as like a pillar and structure to post about. I was training in the morning. What did my sessions look like? What was I eating in a day? How was I balancing this around sort of working full time? Now, I believe it was the May, so a few months into this, May or June, I can't quite remember. I went to a mastermind in Marbella, ran by entrepreneurs in the fitness space. Now, I went there and it opened my eyes, not from the guest speakers, because I think sometimes when the speakers talk, it's a little bit like, it's a bit extreme. Like for this example, Rob Lipsett talking about how to grow a YouTube channel. And he's got like 500,000 subscribers or however many. And you think, of course you can get there, but it just didn't seem quite realistic. It's the people you speak with who are also attending that event who might have 10, 20, 30 online clients. And I was there thinking, hang on, no disrespect. I know more than you. I just haven't got the right systems in place to generate enough clients, enough leads. I need to look at doing this. And why couldn't I? So that's ultimately what I did. Now, August 2023, I basically went full-time online. So in my head, I had made it. I was able to live from where I wanted to, work when I wanted to, and train. Now, just to give some context to this, I was charging £150 a month and I wanted 15 online clients. Okay, because to me, that amount of money, just over like £2,000. Bear in mind, I was living at home. I didn't have any sort of overheads or expenses. That to me was brilliant. Like that was going to allow me to travel. Okay, I wasn't going to stay in 5-star resorts, but it gave me the freedom and gave me a wage to live and obviously further develop as an online coach. Plus, I then had 40 hours a week back to then put back into the business, okay, which then allowed me to grow the client base, etc., further myself as a coach, charge a higher price, etc., etc. So from 2023 to 2025, most recent, up until now, really, I managed to travel and work in a lot of different places. Marbella, Barcelona, went to Krakow, Croatia, Tenerife, Cyprus, Montenegro. I've been to Javier, where my dad lives, multiple times. Spent, crikey, I don't know how long out there. I've been to Finland, been to Amsterdam, just to name a few places. And this was all about living life on my own terms. It's about taking that risk. Okay, I took the risk, obviously leaving M10 because on paper a very, very good gym, but it didn't align with what I wanted to do. Obviously, I then failed the fire service test, and again thought, brilliant. What do I do here? I could have gone in a bit of a rut and just thought, what's the point? But I didn't. I then started working at family business, learning new skills which I can still apply, but carried on building my online coaching to allow me to obviously get into a position where I was then able to take that and again take that risk. And what's the worst that can happen? Something I always ask myself: what is the worst that can happen? As long as it's not death, I'm happy. So striving for more. Now, not with anything, you hit one goal, you want the next thing, you want the next thing, you want the next thing. For me, it was always 15 online clients to go fully online. You hit that, you then get to the next milestone, and then you want more. Okay, so most of 2024 was taken up by myself with my training for my Ironman. Literally for 8 months of 2024, training 2 times a day, 4 or 5 days a week, do some work, repeat. Nice and simple. Really, really good routine. It allowed me to train almost like a professional athlete, and it was fantastic. Now, 2025, obviously the year we're in now, especially at the start, was great because obviously I had a lot more time back, I had a lot more energy back. Spent the first 3 months living in Marbella, then came home for a bit, did a trip to Montenegro, trip to Cyprus, and then went and spent summer in Barcelona for 5 weeks, and then I did 2 weeks over in Javia, and then most recently I did the whole of November in Cyprus. So it was brilliant on paper, but again, I just felt like I was going through the motions. I had that feeling of I should be doing more. Okay, I think there's a misconception that the online coaching on the beach, wicked. It can be like that. It's not like that. But for me, it's just I wasn't feeling fulfilled just doing not bare minimum, but just doing a couple of hours and that's it. I wanted to be pushing myself, challenging myself. And I think that's probably why I've done ultra marathons and Ironman training. It's just to challenge myself and keep myself busy. So yeah, I felt confident, was going through the motions, no challenges to try and overcome. And I was thinking, not that long ago, like 2026, I need to change something. I need to change my location, I need to change maybe something that I do in, just maybe not even something to work towards from a fitness perspective, because I always have something to work towards, but more so from a personal perspective, right? What can I do to really sort of challenge myself and put myself in an uncomfortable position? As I've said just previously, I always ask myself, what is the worst that can happen? As long as it doesn't involve death, then I will go for it. Okay, what's the worst that can happen? Leaving my mobile PT business to go and work at M10. I go to M10, I come back, either pick up my online client again, at my mobile personal training business again, or I'm going to find another job, which I did. What's the worst thing that happens? That I leave a stable 9-to-5 job at the family business, and the online coaching doesn't work. Guess what? I'll find somewhere else. I can leverage my skills with personal training. You know, being a personal trainer, you have a lot of other very good skills. You know, you're very good with people, so it could be in like a sales role, it could be whatever it may be. You can obviously, there's always going to be something there, especially as you've developed as a person. And I always back myself. If I go for an interview or if I try and go for a job, I always feel very confident that I'll come across well and I can put myself in a position that I would have the opportunity, depending on what it is I'm trying to apply for. So, you know, I like to see it as I'm trying to level up all my attributes through life. Almost like on a FIFA career mode. You know, if you're the striker, you want your shooting, you want your dribbling, you want your pace. But this time for me, it's like life. You know, so as many experiences as possible, being in uncomfortable positions, you know, pushing myself physically and mentally. And this is why I always say yes to things and just want to take up new experiences, which has brought me to the position I am in now, which is in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Okay, how niche. I love a niche place as well. You know, don't get me wrong, your Dubai's are great, your Australia's are great, and you know, I will no doubt spend time in those places in the future. But Saudi Arabia is just so niche, which is partly the reason why I'm here. And it's also, like I say, I wanted to seize opportunities, take risks, have new experiences, and get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's been over 2 weeks here. I've definitely felt on edge, a little bit uneasy sometimes, thinking, could just be traveling about, working online again. But when I was doing that, I didn't want to be doing that, or I wanted to be doing more. So that is where we are now, taking risks. 25, you know, and I'm not saying I have made it in life. I'm not saying I have succeeded to where I want to be. However, I would say at the age of 25, I've done a fair bit, you know, and I'm only going to be doing more experiences and everything else. Who knows what I'm going to be doing? This is why sometimes for me, like a 3-5 year plan, a goal, it's hard to think that far ahead, because what happens if an opportunity comes up? Okay, to give context, I'm in Saudi Arabia. I got offered an opportunity 2 weeks before I ended up here. So I went to Cyprus at the start of November. I had an opportunity arise. I flew home early from Cyprus. I had a 10-day period at home, and then I flew out to Saudi Arabia. So I went to Cyprus at the start of November, chilling, coming out, enjoying the weather. 4 weeks later, I was now touch base in Saudi Arabia to live. So you just got to go with it. So that is where I'm at. For me, going through the week, just living for the weekend is not for me. Now, there are people and I have friends who do that, which is perfectly fine. You know, if everyone wants to live different lives, this is not me telling you how to live your life. It's just me saying that there are other ways you can go about it, especially if you are maybe a bit more driven, a bit more ambitious, and you sort of want to live a life that when you're on your deathbed, you can look back and think, yeah, gave it a good go at that. That's how I want to be thinking anyway. So for me, I couldn't think of anything worse of just, letting the days roll into one, because ultimately I want to be excited every single day, which at the moment I definitely am. So it's all about progressing. It's all about moving that needle forward and obviously taking the challenges and taking the risks that potentially will allow me to do that. So what would my advice be? Take the risk, go for it. I've alluded to this many, many times. Make the change. If you're letting all the days roll into one, go for it. Like I say, for me, having that confidence to go and do all of these things definitely stems from fitness. Having discipline, making sure I'm in shape, making sure I'm, setting the standards. That all definitely helps, because that gives me the belief that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to go and do it. Ironman, ultramarathon, photo shoots, whatever it may be. Just going to the gym, when I say I'm going to go to the gym, just stacks that belief. So get into uncomfortable situations, go to new places, meet new people, and get creating a life that you want. Okay, I always say how cliche this sounds, because it really is, but we do only have one life, which I know is cliche, it's no shit Sherlock, but we do. So make the most of it. Like I said, I'm no expert in the grand scheme of things. I'm still a youngster, 2000 born, I'm still a baby. However, these are the things I'll be telling my 16-year-old self all those years ago, and we'll be telling people, whoever watching this, that are maybe sort of on the fence whether or not they want to go and take that risk. Go and move to another country. Go and take that job in Dubai. Go fly and move across Australia with your girlfriend. There's loads of things you can go and do. You just need to have the balls to just go for it, because what's the worst that can happen? You come back, you come back and take off where you are now. Okay, and if you've got a roof over your head, you can eat, you're happy-ish, but want to be happier, that's good enough. So that's my advice, and a little bit as to sort of how I got to where I am now, and obviously a few bits you can take away. So hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of a different video. If we did, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.